early. Hey, everybody, welcome. Glad you're here. Let me know that you can see and hear us okay. I believe we are, yeah, we should be good. Please give me a thumbs up out there if you can see and hear us okay. We're going to start in a couple of minutes. This is Common Ground. We're in my backyard. The homemade sign, and you might hear the neighbors enjoying this lovely afternoon here in California. Give us a thumbs up, please, if you can hear us and see us okay. I'm sure we're good, but I just want to make sure that I want to get it from you people out there that are watching this thing. The wisteria have left us. Hello, Wes. Hey, Wes, can you hear and see us okay? Let us know. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Common Ground. I'm John Lombardo. We're going to kick it off in a couple of minutes. Thanks for being here. Denise and Ken, great that you guys are here. Hi, guys. Everything looking and sounding okay, people out there? Yeah. We are at social distancing. We can't, you can hear the birds really good. Yeah, we're in my backyard. We're in a natural setting. In fact, my neighbors sound like they're having a really fun Friday night, but that's okay. That's the way things are these days, right? I was on a business call with a lady today, and her dog kept barking, and she kept apologizing, and I was saying, there is absolutely no need to apologize. I mean, my children might come running naked through this house any minute now. Well, my kids are probably a little old for that, but you know what I'm talking about.
I saw the funniest thing. There was somebody interviewing somebody, and they were at home. It was like, I think it was BBC, but it was some anchor woman, and she was interviewing somebody who was sitting in obviously like a home office.
Yeah.
And the door opens up behind him. Kid comes in, and he starts cursing up a storm. Just like, and then didn't like apologize to the interviewer. Just said something along the lines of, "Can you believe this?" You know, like, oh, so good.
Did you see the one where the guy didn't have pants on? And he didn't read. He was a newscaster, and he didn't know you could see, and he had no pants on. That was hilarious.
Like some red boxer shorts or something.
One of the first times I ever used a video communication tool was probably back in like 2008, and it was so new to us. And I was talking to somebody, and Della walked in the room stark naked, walking around behind me. And luckily, it was someone we knew really well. But we were both just, you didn't think about those kind of things. All right, let's kick off. It's 6 p.m. Let's get right into it. We have a really cool topic tonight, so I don't want to waste any time. Let's get into it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. You are on Common Ground, the place where we bring fear to watch it die. When our show began, we wanted to create a platform for civil discussion and civil disagreement. The fear we were fighting then was in the great divide of bipartisanship in America. But now we have a new enemy, and the fear we fight on the show these days is in the form of division regarding how to deal with a global pandemic that has impacted the lives of nearly every living person on the planet. With people sick and dying, this fear is far more palpable, far more real. So for the foreseeable future, our show will seek to dispel the fears of our viewers, and ours too, with good information, a sense of community, a sense of humor, and above all, the reminder that none of us is in this alone. For the first time in memory, we are all truly and quite literally all in this together. I'm your host, John Lombardo, and this is Eric Rodriguez. But before we get into our topic tonight, I want to say thank you to all of the brilliant and courageous women who participated in the show last week. Eric and I were concerned about the subject matter, which was sexual assault. We talked about the Biden accusations, and we talked about the broader subject of sexual assault. And because we're men, we felt that our perspective would need to be commingled with a feminine viewpoint if we were going to have any type of serious conversation about this very sensitive and challenging subject. Since it's such a tough one, we were concerned that maybe our viewers, and especially our female viewers, would be hesitant to speak up. Our fears were completely unfounded. We heard from a group of incredible women who courageously shared their stories and contributed their insights to what, in my opinion, was by far the best show we've ever had. So, ladies, thank you. And some of those ladies actually sent me some private messages afterward about some other stories that they've experienced. And it was just so, it's exactly what I want this show to be. If people feel like they can share their traumatic situations with us in the interest of discussing it and helping other people with that, that's exactly what we want this show to be. Despite what may seem like just a way to bash Donald Trump. Anyway, that's not really what I want to do, honestly. So tonight our topic is how has coronavirus impacted the collective psyche of the world, but the United States of America in particular. We're starting to move into a new phase of opening up the country. Some states are doing it more quickly than others, but how does that play out in terms of, in terms of our fears, in terms of what's acceptable to some of us? Many people want to just jump right back in, and other people don't want to. So, what are the ramifications and the psychological impacts that this whole pandemic has had on us, and are they warranted? Hi, Clara. Glad you're here. Awesome that you guys are here. So what do you guys think out there? What are your thoughts? As you guys are, typing in and talking about that, we do have a little bit of delay. So my questions don't get to you guys in the immediacy. So while you're talking about that, I want to tell you what Gavin Newsom tweeted today. He said, today, California begins move into stage 2 of modifying the stay-at-home order. We are not out of the woods yet. COVID-19 is still spreading. Retail with curbside pickup, manufacturing, and logistics can start to reopen with modifications that prevent the spread of COVID-19. I went and got pizza last night, and they have tents and a situation set up where you can go and have curbside pickup, and I think that's what a lot of stores are going to be doing. So that's what we're doing in California.
We were anticipating that, but before yesterday, there wasn't any hint whether or not we were going to move into phase 2.
Yeah.
And so we're actually early. I mean, a lot of people were anticipating the phase 2 would start on May 15th, which was the original that was actually the second stay-at-home order. There was one date, and then it got moved to May 15th, and most people were anticipating that would be the start of phase 2. But today he announced that we were moving into that, and so right. I saw several businesses, advertisements that businesses were opening up in a limited way.
So I read in the Guardian this week that they wrote an article about Missouri. Missouri businesses are opening slowly, but according to most reports, it's moving very slowly. Few customers are showing up, and it's a strange, nebulous area that we're in, and I'm sure I guess it makes sense, where people are eager to get back to normal, but also fearful of just getting back to normal. In fact, many people are saying that we're never going back to normal again. But I think that one of the things, I think there is a bit of, I don't want to say a disconnect, but I think there's a lack of understanding from a lot of leadership about the chasm between those two things. So this week, Kevin Brady, he's a Texas representative, and he is the ranking member of the House Ways and Means Committee. And he went on Fox News this week and was talking about incentivizing workers to go back to work. And it's interesting to me one of the things he suggested. He made several suggestions. One of the suggestions was maybe give an incentive that if you go back to work now, you get to keep 2 weeks of your unemployment. This shows me that from some of our leaders, the idea is that people don't want to go back to work because they're making more money on unemployment and they want to keep that money. And that may be true in some cases, but I just don't think that is a broad enough understanding of the real issue.
Well, so I mean, I've got two immediate thoughts about that. That concept it's a narrative that's been going on for a long time, and it is true in a tiny minority of people. Most people want to work. They make more money working. We all get a great deal of meaning and satisfaction out of working, and that's a narrative that some people choose to espouse. Now, so I don't believe that, and this is anecdotal. This is just in my experience, but I have talked to lots of people that are nervous about being back in certain settings, and they should be. That I talked a long time ago. You and I talked on the show about how people were going to be nervous about going back out, and that how somehow as a country we were sort of acting like there was a tornado coming. I use that analogy, and we were going down in the basement, and the tornado was going to go by. Right. We were going to come out, and then there was going to be a little bit of cleanup to do, but everything would be
as it was,
back to normal. And that's not the case. In fact, now we know, there aren't fewer people infected, and now we know that far more asymptomatic people, infected asymptomatic people are out there than we knew at some point. Mm-hmm. And so there is real danger of contracting this virus. And we've seen over and over and over again that lots and lots and lots of people, I don't know if I would say the majority, but a whole lot of people are irresponsible. They don't really follow guidelines, they once some restriction is lifted, they rush out and they act irresponsibly. And so, there's no question in my mind that as we open back up, we're not gonna see the downward trend. I mean, we have not yet seen a downward trend. We've seen
some tapering off.
We've seen some. The curve is getting flatter, yeah. And it's not rising as rapidly as it once was. And so, but if people don't continue these mitigation techniques, don't continue to wear masks and to wash hands and to stay out of real public arenas, they don't continue to socially distance, then we're going to see a giant surge again. And so people have a reason to be concerned.
Trish said, I think there are so many people who are affected in their minds, but don't really know it because they've been alone with the same people, so they're not even aware. Yeah, sort of a bubble, right? Trish living in a sort of a bubble. And then Denise said, I've been quite impressed with Governor Sisolak of Nevada. Closing gaming was unheard of, and he closed it down so fast, I felt it really has kept our cases down. Denise, you're right. And I said this back then. I'm in Vegas a lot, as you know. I live in California, but I'm in Las Vegas all the time. And Las Vegas is easy because all you have to do is shut down the casinos. You get most of the nightlife. You get restaurants. You get clubs. You get dancing. You get the gaming, the bars, everything. If you just shut down the casinos. And that's what he did. And I don't think that was easy for him to do. He faced a lot of pressure doing it. Denise also says that the White House is testing weekly, sometimes daily. How are we testing here? We aren't. So, the testing is what remains the linchpin of this whole thing. It's really what's going to have to happen before we can really do much of anything. There's some interesting stuff going on with testing. So I'm going to circle back to a point about testing, but I want to give you a perspective. And I thought about this. So we had a little bit of, we had a protest here. People were out at the government center protesting, wanting to go back to work. And if you're watching this show right now and you're one of the people that attended one of those protests or feels that we need to get back to work, please chime in. I want to hear your perspective and we want to discuss this with you and see where you're coming from. Because I think that I understand that. I understand a person living in my city wanting to get back to normal. In Ventura, where we live, which is about 50 miles northwest of Los Angeles, which is a hard-hit area, a lot of cases in Los Angeles. But in our community, there are 850,000 people who live in our county, and we've had a little over 500 cases. In our city, 125,000 people, we have 40 confirmed cases. We should not, logically, should we, have to follow the same rules as New York City? Should we? We shouldn't have to. We should be able to target specific ways that our town can function. And yeah, if you're going to lose your restaurant, then I understand why you're out there protesting.
There's a couple things that I mean, there's a few thoughts I have. I find it. I can understand being frustrated, and I can understand, I mean, I would wonder why the protests haven't been, where's our fucking tests? Because the only way to get that's what the protests should be about, is why haven't the governments, the federal governments, the state governments, why haven't the governments actually 2 months ago said the number one priority for everyone is to get these tests out there, get positive negative tests, get antibody tests out there for every single person in the country. We need, in 2 weeks, we need 500 million tests, and we need to keep doing that, because we need to test people. I mean, all the think tanks that talk about how to handle this situation all talk about 5 million tests per day in the country. And we're at about 250,000 per day in the country right now. And that's our peak so far. So the testing isn't there, and there are some problems with testing. There's no question about it. But that just means more testing it should be happening, not less. And so the way to get back to work is through people feeling secure about not getting a deadly virus.
The safe way, yeah.
So that's the way to get back to work.
Back to normal,
It's also interesting to me that we didn't have protests when these orders came. It's weird to me that a week or 2 weeks before we're already set to open up, then there's all of a sudden this big upheaval, open us back up. It's like it's coming in a week or two.
Well, I want to ask you about that, because we're going to get into the underground element of this a little bit. Pete said, I think that a good question to also consider is not just when we reopen, but what the new normal of fully reopened means. Do we require new sanitary protocols, new social protocols, restricted personal contact in public and in private, new healthcare insurance requirements, new workplace space? Yeah. Pete, I think all of that's going to have to.
So Pete, I've read in our city, in our state, I've read guidelines guidelines have been coming out since they were, hey, everyone wash your hands more. And yes, those guidelines are coming out. There have been, at the federal level, the CDC put out some guidelines didn't put out. They sent a report that they wanted to publish with those guidelines for a federal guideline for those types of things, and the administration wouldn't publish it. So the CDC wanted to put it out, and the administration said it was too restrictive, and they wouldn't publish it. And then also there's been some halts on OSHA. There are many people that are putting those kinds of things out, and there are many people that have suggested. Think tanks have created these big reports about here's how we should do every step of this thing, and so those kinds of things are out there. But as far as it's going to be a bit of time. There's going to be a negotiation apparently at the federal level before they are willing to put something out, and then each state also is going to have their own, and each company. There's also an interesting side note to that. Mitch McConnell the other day was talked about how the next aid bill needs to include some anti-liability. Maybe I said that incorrectly. Some protections against liability to businesses that open back up. McConnell wants one of the things that happens is that businesses and governments are liable to, that's one of the things that people are talking about in the protests and saying some of this stuff is tyranny. Well, there are laws in place that say that you have to
provide a safe space.
Provide a certain baseline of safety, that you're negligent if you don't provide that safety. So McConnell was saying we can't let businesses reopen and then open themselves up
for litigation.
For litigation, because people get sick. So
and in America, that's a good point. I would absolutely agree with that.
But you can see, I agree. It needs to be just, those things are in place because we have seen over and over and over again that companies and governments will put profits before people's safety. We'll put, that's just kind of and so those
and by the same, on the other side of that coin, people will sue for stupid shit.
Yeah.
And try to get money out of people, and businesses can be ruined by that. So both sides of that debate are going to have to be, it's going to have to be deliberated.
Yeah,
it's very important. Zach said, tribalism is so out of control, it's so unreal that you can guess with a 97% certainty what people's position is on coronavirus based on their politics. 0% of people were surprised at both of your stances on this. Political parties making people decide where they stand on this overwhelmingly at this time. Zach, what do man? Love hearing confidence in Trump's White House over the average business owners. I don't understand that. But the stance that Eric and I have, I think, put forward right now is that we think there should be more testing, and that I don't think that our community should have to adhere to the same standards of a harder hit community. I don't think that makes sense. Here's a crazy idea I want to put out there. Clara said, we are not hearing CDC's advice. They hold the most knowledge and scientific expertise. Yeah, they actually thought that the CDC guidelines were too prescriptive, Clara. That was the term they used, meaning it was just saying everybody has to act this way. And it was, and so here's my crazy idea. We shut the whole country down. We were able to do that. Couldn't we do something a little less draconian, but probably more effective? What if we said, all right, we're gonna let a bunch of communities go back to what they've been doing, what they do. They're normal. But we're going to restrict travel within communities. We're going to ask everybody not to stay in your house, but stay in your community, stay in your county or your city.
I said that, I don't know, 6-7 weeks ago, where I said, why haven't we stopped? Even back with plane travel, now, that dwindled, but yes, traveling around, and then, you'd have to have restrictions or not restrictions necessarily, but health safety guidelines, chains, and what, and the people and the supplies and how they're taken care of, so they're not, transporting the people who are, because you're going to get shipping coming in, and those things have to. But restricting travel makes a lot more sense. In fact, that's how this thing spread, right? That's how it spread around the world.
And it seems like if we can control ourselves to stay home and shut down everything, we could control ourselves to remain in our communities. 6 weeks, just stay in your community for 6 weeks. Zach said, build a wall. Yes, a wall of reason, Zach. 6 weeks.
One of the there was a town in Northern California that some folks started saying we need to test everybody, and then they got a group of people together, a little committee of citizens, and then they some of them had some they just started going out and getting donations from people, and some of them were small, like $10 from somebody, and some of them were donors that donated $100,000, or they got all these donations, and they tested everybody in the entire town, and that was a small community. I forget how, maybe there's 20,000 people there or something, but they did it, and they said that it really amounted to $200 each. But they had to coordinate all the, volunteers coordinated the whole thing.
There's some crazy stuff about tests. I want to take some comments. Said, are you getting or requiring a vaccine that is completely tested and might cause more harm than it heals. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Value in border control? Amazing. Continue. Zach, I don't know any human being who doesn't think that borders should be controlled. Do you? Of course, there's value in border control. There, I don't know of a country on the planet that doesn't.
I have heard people say such things, but we've never said that
no,
on this show.
No, I don't know.
And to Pete's point, I've been saying for a long time. I mean, we have talked about a vaccine and potentially it coming in at some point, but I do not believe that we should be thinking about a vaccine really at all. We almost never, science almost never comes up with vaccines for viruses, and if they do it, they're years away, and that's not what's going to save us right now. We need to think about the health of people now and the health of the economy now, and a vaccine is, I mean, we just don't. It took 30 years to find something to like really mitigate some of the HIV strains. Sometimes a vaccine comes in 4, 5, 10 years. That's not what I don't even think thinking about a vaccine. I know a lot of people talk about it, but and a lot of conspiracy theorists are focused on that. But treatment, testing, mitigation, and treatment of the symptoms are what we should be focused on. And I think that's what we have to be focused on. We have to try to get the virus, and our healthcare system has to get better at understanding and treating the symptoms so that people don't die at as rapid of a rate, that people get better when they do get the virus. Those are the things we should be working on.
To Pete's point, there was an interesting article in National Geographic this week that one of the challenges that we're having with testing is that because so much has been deregulated to speed some vaccines like that, there's sort of a Wild West atmosphere out there, and there's a lot of faulty testing getting into the marketplace and gumming up the works. That was an interesting, if you guys want to check that out, that's in National Geographic. Wes said, here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, things are opened up. People are going nuts with the new freedoms. Some are following safety guidelines, many are not. Now we're getting in by tourists from New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, which there's hot spots around. Doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, Wes, that's what I'm talking about. So I don't know what things were like in Myrtle Beach, but to use my town as an example, like I said, it's 125,000 people here, and we so far have 40 confirmed cases of this. There hasn't really been a big spike here, but people from Los Angeles start coming up to our beaches on the weekends. We could see something really bad happen here.
And we already saw that.
Yeah,
we saw we saw crowd at the beach 2 weekends ago, or I think it was.
Yeah, no HIV vaccine. There's mitigation. Yeah, that's making Clara Sharman said checks and balances is not a thing anymore. CDC is a federal entity. Guess who wields the pressure of having a job over these people? The comments above you, not politicizing, is exactly that. We need to make sure independent oversight keeps. Sharman, I don't know how in this political environment, I don't know how we're going to achieve unbiased oversight. It just seems like things are so hyper partisan that I believe that if there truly were unbiased oversight, whichever political party's interests were threatened by that, they would find a narrative that would get them disqualified. I just think that's the way we have. The partisan battle in this country has driven our government institutions, in my opinion. They're mad. They're power mad. There's no rational reason behind what they're doing. It's just a date. Every day it's just wake up and win the fight. Wake up and win the fight. I'll give you an example of this. Watch for this. Ruth Bader Ginsburg went in the hospital this week. There's already a couple of Republicans speaking up about if anything happens to her, she's unable to serve, it will be their responsibility to quickly replace her, that seat. These are the same Republicans who absolutely said there's no way that we can responsibly replace nominate Merrick Garland because it's Obama's last year in office. Trump's presidency could be up in the end of the year. If they were running an ethical program and they really believed in those principles, they'd be saying the same thing now about that seat. They would say we have to wait till there's an election. They're not saying that. So that's what I'm talking. It's just an example. You can find examples of Democrats as well. I'm not saying it's all Republicans, but it's an example of how the interests of the party completely dictate the ethics and the actions of what they do. That's just prevalent, and I don't know how we, come out from under that. So let's talk about. I want to talk about conspiracy theories. Let's have some fun. So there's a lot of crazy stuff out there.
There sure is, and one of the things that I've always had a little bit of a hard time. I mean, despite the fact that here I am with John talking about this week to week. I don't enjoy. I don't like spending time on politics. I just don't. And as I tried to consider, I watched some videos and I read some articles, and this is even less tasteful to me. This is more distasteful. The craziness, like getting involved. I mean, there are interesting things that do pop up, but going down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories is like, to me, it just feels like, why am I like? It feels like I'm rolling around in the mud. It feels like I'm putting things in my mind that aren't going to do any good there.
Yeah. Well, and more importantly, it's, man, we have a lot of negative press around Mexican drug cartels, for example. Very violent, right? Dangerous, horrible. We could talk for hours about it. But the United States we have 5% of the population on the planet, and we consume 37% of the cocaine. It's everything, especially in our country, comes down to supply and demand. If people weren't jumping on board, these things would not become viral. Conspiracy theories were far less prevalent before social media because the people who were prone to believe in them, these are people who are antisocial. Alessandro, is that a pterodactyl in the background? The people that are drawn to them are antisocial.
Be a little bit careful about characterizing,
Well, there's a lot of. It's not hard to find that there is a psychological type that is drawn to conspiracies. There's a ton of research out there on it. Now, of course, look, some conspiracies are real,
but let me say this. Some of the foundations of some of the conspiracy theories right now have to do with like I read today that 30% of Americans believe that the coronavirus escaped from a lab in Wuhan, China. Mm-hmm. That's a huge number of people that and every expert that I've real articles and podcasts with, interviewing actual scientists who have real jobs. They all say this. They all say that they have not found
real evidence.
They have not found evidence. They cannot pinpoint exactly. So, and they all also agree that it is extraordinarily unlikely that it is anything but naturally occurring. So for 30% of our country to believe that it escaped from a lab, that's enormous. We're not talking about normal conspiracy theories. People.
Well, but that's gone beyond a conspiracy theory now. That is exactly what the president of the United States is saying every day. I heard him say it last Sunday. In fact, last Sunday, he said that very shortly, the person interviewing him, I forget the gentleman's name, he's a Fox News guy. He said, "Do you say you have proof of this? Are we going to see the proof?" And he said, "Yes, it'll completely compelling proof will be released very shortly." That was Sunday, and this Friday night we haven't seen that proof. But so when the president of the United States, regardless of his party, says something repeatedly, that's mainstream. So there's no surprise that it becomes such a prevalent theory.
Agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's part of the issue is that, and as you open the show about partisanship, and I believe that's completely intentional. I believe that part of the campaign is to blame China, and that's going to be part of the campaign. And there will be two big pushes: one to blame China and one to blame Democrats, which plays into the protests. To say what's going on in the country has nothing to do with me, because it's the Chinese fault for releasing the virus, and it's the Democrats' fault for shutting down the economy. And that will be the major push for the campaign over the next several months. I mean, it seems it's already started. There's already a lot of, there's ads, and there's there's things that he's saying from the briefing room. So I mean, that's what I think is, but it's still like without any. I mean, I agree with you. Yes, if the president says something, a bunch of people are going to believe it. But when all the scientists are saying they can't pinpoint where it came from, believe it, it's still surprising.
Denise said the thing about these conspiracies are that some of them, when you listen to the videos, they make so much sense until real research pulls the threads, where you find the sources are tin hat foil proven wrong, but finding that thread is sometimes hidden deep in the hay. That's true. So I had several friends in one day this week. One of the occupational hazards / great things about doing this is that a lot of our viewers send me content that they think would work on the show, and I appreciate that, and I of course I welcome that. 4 different people in one day sent me the same video, and it was it's about the woman who claims that she was now there's a few things that, so this is where reading comes in, everybody, and why it's so important to be readers. She has some compelling things to say, and in fact she has some things ideologically I agree with about the greedy profiteering of pharmaceutical companies and seeking patents and things like that. I don't think she's a tinfoil hat crazy person, but
you sent that to me.
Yeah.
And to me,
hi Carol, we're glad you're here. Sorry.
There were a bunch of things that were amusing to me. I mean, the production value was really high in comparison to many.
Yeah.
So somebody put a little bit of money into it, but the music and the narration, the tone, and the funny things about all these conspiracy theories, like when they're on video, when they're on YouTube or whatever, they I mean, even not, they make a point, and then there's this pause as if it's this huge revelation, and it's not really anything. It's amusing to me how they're like they 2 dots, and you're supposed to be convinced that there's this giant worldwide conspiracy, and it's simply just a couple of random points. And but one of the things that I thought was so interesting about that, and you pointed to it, John, is that I felt like there was a bunch of accusations that were hard to, you would have had to have done a lot of research to track down, but I felt like it was a little bit of a indictment on our capitalist, the way that we do things. And I mean, patenting, giving people the ability to be able to patent a vaccine or some intellectual property around around a method or something like that, who are government employees or who are private company employees who are funded by the government. I mean, that just seemed like an indictment on, yes, that's, we have people who are benefiting themselves financially greatly from the research they're doing, and it's not publicly owned, it's privately owned. And so that seems like an indictment. And a lot of the things she pointed to me too seem like yes, we know that people are irresponsible. We know that people will we know that people will do things for profit. They will hold information back, and that sometimes that really negatively impacts people, sometimes costs lives, in order to get a head start. We know this, economically, and also like when actual lives are on the line. We know that I mean, it happens over and over and over again. So some of the big reveals to me just seems like, yeah, that's the way, especially our country, who values profit so highly, and patents. Our country is the king of patents, and that
The king.
We're number one.
So, guys, we're talking about conspiracy theories. There are elements to look for so that you'll know that you're in a conspiracy theory when you're watching it. And in order to help you guys understand how that works, I am going to create a conspiracy theory right now tonight in front of our audience. So first of all, first thing you need for conspiracy theory, I'm going to show you the elements after we're done, but I am right now going to make all of you see this man in a very, very different light. Here we go. Oh, that's the wrong song. Okay, here we go. Here we go, everybody.
That was not scary.
Hold on, where are you going? Okay. Okay, and then now I've got to get my microphone and get very close to it. I'll turn the volume down here a little bit.
This is a better way for me to be scary.
Eric Rodriguez has a Hispanic last name, but his hair is red. Did you ever wonder why? Eric has a beard shaped exactly like the beard of Fidel Castro, former dictator of Cuba. Rodriguez is a popular last name in Mexico, the same country that has Mexican drug cartels. We asked an expert in law enforcement, and you know he's an expert because he has stripes on his sleeve. Officer Lombardo, without knowing any of the facts, is it safe to say that Eric Rodriguez is most likely a Mexican drug cartel mole? Yes. Eric Rodriguez goes on vacation every year outside of the country, almost as if to say, the United States isn't good enough for my vacations. Where he goes and what he does, only he really knows. The facts are hard to dispute. Eric Rodriguez is not what he seems. There you go. Now, I know our viewers out there, but yeah, all of a sudden, you don't trust this guy so much, do you? You don't trust him so much. He's a little bit more shady, a little bit scary to look at. So here are the elements. First of all, most of these things that are out there are manipulative. The music is scary. That's always the first thing. I always know, like, the music is. I'm supposed to feel afraid. Okay. Secondly, the tone of the speaker, close to the mic, dark, breathy, intense.
Leading you to draw conclusions.
Leading questions, ridiculous comparisons like that Kobe. I laughed so hard. My friend sent me this Kobe Bryant video about Kobe Bryant being part of a mind control thing. And they brought his friend up, like this, his business partner, who looks very much like Charles Manson. Like, what's that got to do with anything? It looks like Charles Manson. It's like when they used to talk about Barack Obama, and they would say that he was probably a Muslim operative, right? Remember those stories? He had ties to and they would say his middle, Barack Hussein Obama. So the logical step you're being asked to make here is that because he has the same middle name as the last name of another person, Saddam Hussein, that America doesn't trust, he's somehow not to be trusted. That means if you ever meet anybody named Jeffrey, Don't let him over to your house because he might be a person who eats people like Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, after all, they have the same name, right? So these bizarre comparisons between other dark figures that are irrelevant and leading questions. I specifically asked a very leading question. Is it safe to say? When anybody asks another quote expert, and by the way, you saw my expert. A lot of the experts seeing these videos, the only expertise they have is that they have a stethoscope around their neck or something, right? But they may be, I don't know, they may be real health people, health practitioners. But with a question like, "Is it safe to say?" or it's almost as if that means we have no data or facts to back it up, but we're making this leap, and we want you to make it with us. So. This discussion has taken a frightening turn. Bobby Gallion.
One of the great things about too, you did a great job with that, John. That there's a whole bunch of actual facts.
Yeah,
things that are actually true, and like with that, and with the one that you were talking about, they had one expert on. And everything was based on her perspective, and she had been prosecuted, maybe persecuted, and so it was focused on one person. I mean, I don't know who was exactly.
Well, but let me give you an example. So once again, guys, reading. So this is a. Denise said it's safe to say we're all quite concerned about Eric. You should be, Denise. He's not what he seems. So that particular video, that woman claimed, honestly or not, that she was thrown in prison because of this study that she was part of. Well, I got online and checked it out, and according to the state of Nevada, she was actually arrested for taking laboratory supplies and equipment and journals with her. And maybe she thought they were hers and they were part of her study. I don't know. But that's why she got arrested. She wasn't arrested for some dark purpose. She was arrested, the corporate per se. She took things that didn't belong to her. So I think that unless the state of Nevada is behind but so why not say that? Why not say?
And that's a super important point. I see this over and over and over again. Rather than say, here's what they arrested me for, but those were just trumped up charges. What they were actually arrested me for was because I was, and to leave those details out. And she did some other things that she made some leaks, she made some unfounded accusations that I feel like it just, and even what you're talking about with the tone and it's like that undermines the credibility. Now I know you're selling something.
Well, the guy, go back and watch it again. The guy doing the video is not asking her questions. He's confirming everything she's saying and letting her respond.
Yeah.
So there's not a constructive discussion going on here. It's just it's
propaganda.
It's propaganda. It might be propaganda. There may be truth to it. But it's still propaganda.
Well, there's certainly truth to it. Some of the commentary on our system is absolutely accurate, and it's not just the healthcare system or government officials being able to profit off of their work. That's true in all kinds of industries, and that is an issue that we should be more aware of, and we should we should demand more transparency. I mean, the real, to me, the thing that I got out of that, like, our capitalist system in that situation is failing us.
Sure.
And our transparency and our thirst for allowing people to profit is in that situation. It's creating an environment where it's too easy to use your privilege and your power.
Well, Bobby, I'm going to ask you. So Bobby Gallion, one of our viewers, I think Bobby, are you in Oregon now? So anyway, Bobby said that's a cover-up. Dr. Fauci is going down. He's putting fraud into Dr. Fauci's name. That's a cover-up. And I hear about that. Please tell us your perspective on that. So this is interesting. Karen Nolan, Karen's in Hawaii. Karen, glad you're here. Said fake news has taken what happened with Orson Welles in the radio drama The World to a whole new level. Taking materials that our colleagues have patented illegal won't put you in jail unless you go ballistic or something. This is about some guys making money on something she felt entitled to make money from but couldn't. Otherwise, Pete said, Northern California, sorry, Bobby, he's in Northern California. Pete said, technology is taking away our ability to verify validity on a person-to-person basis. Yeah, that's right. When we worked within local communities or neighborhoods, it was easier to track people's reputations and historic patterns of behavior reputation. Now we have to try to ferret out the truth with distance and intentional misinformation long distance. That's a good point, Pete. Thank you for saying that. I agree with you. And then everyone yelling, Denise said, and then everyone yelling about their First Amendment rights being violated because YouTube took it down. But YouTube is a private company, so there's no violation, but apparently it's proof that it was true. Yeah, and then but then it feeds on itself. It's a cycle. Why did YouTube take it down?
Well, and you know, you Facebook have left incredibly, like, things that you think, how could this be allowed to be? You know, they have a very, very generous and loose policy as far as what to leave up. I mean, if it must have been violating, you know, one of two things. You know, I mean, it must have been violating something pretty intense in order for it to get taken down, because the things that get, I mean, there are so many organizations that are constantly trying to get Facebook to to monitor certain things, and they
don't want to do it.
And their stance is, you know, almost always, we don't want censorship. And so if it got taken down, like I mean, and I don't know if it did. I don't know if it was ever on there. I don't know either one of those things. But sometimes people believe things that you know, I hear things repeated all the time, and then I look them up, and I can't find any indication about it at all. Like, did that even exist? And it's being repeated over and over and over again.
So I'm getting told that our mic, I didn't turn it down, but let me see. So let me know if the mic is better. I've gotten a little closer to Eric, and I have turned up the gain just a little bit. Let me know if it's better. So, well, guys, we've got a few minutes left. Eric, did you have anything? You had done a little bit of homework tonight, hadn't you?
I saw this ad. I on going onto YouTube, I saw this ad for this newspaper, and I just said to you briefly, I said, now I'm going to sound like the conspiracy theorist. I bet. So it was an ad about a newspaper that really laid out how much China was at fault for the coronavirus in the ad for the newspaper. And I said, I bet you that this has something to do with Trump's campaign. You know, that I know that one of the ways that the Trump campaign was really, really successful in 2016 was they were far more savvy with electronic campaigning that you know, was separate from the public campaign. There was a lot of you know, and I read this whole article interviewing the man whose name I've forgotten, who was sort of in charge of that, and really innovative ideas. And they really targeted areas of the country where they knew that they had to win, and they just did really good things. And I said, you know, this very this newspaper ad that was kind of laying out how the Chinese were responsible. And I just said to John, I think that that probably has some ties. And so I looked it up, and now there's not really an indication that the president himself has any tie to this newspaper. However, the newspaper is one of the highest funders of the Facebook Trump campaigns. They're one of the major donors there, and there a few people in the Trump administration have contributed to this newspaper, and it's essentially it's a newspaper that is anti-communist and specifically targets the Chinese government and they're sort of anti-Chinese government, and it was pretty easy to find that they were contributors to or
Karen said technology has outpaced policy. This is interesting. She said Twitter for delete Trump's threatening posts since he has too many followers, even though it is breaking their own policy. That's interesting.
A lot of people have that case for if you have, I mean, it's like everything else, right? It's profits over.
And if you have that type of a following, they do a certain type of cachet and power that you don't have to. The thing that drives me insane is I'll call you out, Bobby. I love you, brother, but I'm going to call you out. I asked, give me some more information on this Fauci thing. And the answer is he's got dark energy. So that doesn't really tell me enough to compel me. And when a lot of the people that perpetuate these, look, there may be forces at work to perpetuate these things, but a bunch of people buy in and really get invested in these things. We know people that spend a lot of time sharing this information online. Now, look, if this stuff is true, great. I want to know about it. And so, but I have never had anybody on a really outlandish theory give me hard data. Never. And I want data. I want to know. I'd like to know. So
one of the things that I think that is so difficult about these things, so a lot of that particular video was about Fauci. And so what is the conclusion to be drawn there? Personally, I don't give a shit about Fauci. I don't. And I
didn't know who he was 3 months ago.
Me either.
Yeah.
He is saying some things that make a lot of sense to me. And in addition to make a lot of sense to me, there are hundreds of scientists and doctors from other countries
all over the world,
that are saying very similar things. And in fact, they're saying, a lot of them are saying that we should be handling things differently. Now, I mean, there's but the health stuff, there's a lot of agreement about how the virus spreads and how we can mitigate the spread of the virus. And that's all across the world from 150 countries. People are seeing, so what he says is not very relevant to me. I think the implication is, since he's done some shady things, that you shouldn't trust what he says. And specifically, what it means is, see, this coronavirus stuff is bullshit. And I think that one of the things that happens is even though we have access to the internet, we get a little isolated. Like this stuff, if this stuff was just happening in our country, I can understand the prevalence of the conspiracy theories around what we're doing here. Like Fauci has some sketchy stuff in his past, but it's not just here, it's everywhere. So there's no way. I mean, you can't get 10 people to conspire and it not get out, much less the entire, I mean, unless the Illuminati around the planet is actually real and I'm asleep, but I can't, I don't accept that. So we seem very, very isolated, and we're meant to say, since he's sketchy, then this whole thing, everything that he says can't be trusted, even though he's not the only one saying it. In fact, there's just hundreds and hundreds of other scientists that are saying the same thing. So if you don't like him, just find the consensus around the world.
So we got some conversation. Bill said it's not for a fact. I don't know what that means. Bill, please share with us what that means, Bill. I want to hear what you have to say. Sharman said some people don't need hard data to float or believe a theory, but damn it, you need a smoking gun to connect X and Y of corruption happening in front of our faces. That is my point that I'm going to make both in my closing comments and right now. What I want to say, Wes said, problem is hard data can often be biased or manipulated to push an agenda or on both or multiple sides of the issue. And then Carol said it's all about academic competition gone crazy. I'm sure there are lots of researchers and doctors who resent Fauci's success, but that doesn't make what he does a conspiracy. Good point about the fact that he doesn't lead the world's medical and scientific community. Pete said many scientists are funded by governments, and the leaders of many of these governments are politically motivated. I always try to track where people get funded, and not surprisingly, their opinions seem to align with their funding sources, and that's very believable to me. But
well, that's one of the things, the points that I was making about that video is like, yes, it's absolutely a fact, and we see it in many countries. I mean, in many cases in our country and certainly around the world, that yes, people they delay the results of things so that they can get a head start on making money, and I mean that is the way. That's the way things. That's not a conspiracy. That's just the system. That's the way the system is set up right now. Now we can demand. I mean, we can demand more transparency and hope that we get it. But
I especially when there's a better explanation. So there is scientific data that will actually back this up, and people talking about this in the science in the world of research and biology who, from what I can see, have no hidden agenda, that coronavirus has been around forever in animals, and that human beings are entrenching more and more on animal populations because our populations are growing and expanding, and the change in climate is causing animals to change their behavior and come more into contact with people, and that's why this happened. There is hard data to support that. There's scientific data. We don't have to wonder if it's true or not. So the problem with conspiracy theories is that they misdirect us from the solutions. They take our eye off of the ball, because if that is true, and that sounds logical and reasonable to me, then we can do things about that. But if we're buying into these strange conspiracy theories about Chinese doing crazy stuff in labs, look, if they are doing that, great, I want to know, and we should all know, right? But if it's going to remain a conspiracy theory indefinitely, then I think it's harmful because it takes our eye off the prize to be able to do something to stop these from happening. Barack Obama, Bill Gates both spoke very publicly about this 5 years ago, about this happening. And it was around the same time they were dealing with Ebola in Africa, saying this is
not a very sneaky way to have a conspiracy.
No, not a very sneaky way. And I keep going back to it. What is Bill Gates' motivation to create a patent that he makes money off of? He was the wealthiest man in the world. All he had to do was sit there and keep getting money. And he'd step down to do.
Instead, he's generously donating tens of millions of dollars constantly. Like, that doesn't seem like somebody who's, but I agree with the point in terms of it takes our eye off the ball. Yes, I mean there and those facts. I mean, there are facts. We don't know exactly where science doesn't know exactly has not yet and never pinpoint exactly where that virus originated. Yes, it is true that there are coronaviruses being studied in labs, and that was going on for a long time. So, that's true, and those, you're being asked to say something that has been happening for a really long time. And what those conspiracy theories are asking you to do is that is for nefarious ends, that they were up to something, and not only were they up to something, but there was a conspiracy, to whatever that theory is trying to lead you toward.
That's Eric's opinion, if you trust him. But I think we all know the truth about Eric Rodriguez after tonight's show. Beard. It's a lot like Fidel Castro's, I'm telling you. Coincidence? No. Well, guys, we are out of time. We're over an hour, so thank you all so much for being here as always. And now we're going to hop into my final little spiel here called The Way I See It. And conspiracy theorists, I'm going to go a little hard on you tonight. The reason is, as I explained, I really think there's something problematic with this focus It draws our attention away from real solutions and gets us caught up in silly things and creates smoke screens that give people cover to do truly nefarious things sometimes. So the way I see it, T. Barnum said there's a sucker born every minute. Now, since Mr. Barnum's days, birth rates have declined by about 30%. So one would think that fewer suckers are being born, but with the advent of social media and other platforms that provide a public forum for anyone with an internet connection, I'm pretty sure we've covered the spread. Okay, I'm joking, and it's easy to call people who, crazy, obscure theories stupid, but is that accurate? Are they stupid? No, I don't think that's true. Why are some people so quick to believe conspiracy theories? Most interesting to me is that we seem to have an appetite. The more outlandish, the better, while we show an amazing myopia toward actual threats to our safety and prosperity. For example, the stories that hospitals are inflating the number of COVID cases because they get $13,000 per patient with the virus and $39,000 for every patient put on a ventilator. Now, that's not accurate. You can go and read about this. There is money designated for those purposes, but it was designated through the CARES Act, so Congress actually let that happen and to shore up losses from things like elective surgery that hospitals can't do anymore. And the numbers are also estimates. They don't exact 13 grand for every patient. No matter, people are talking about it, but meantime, corporate America has already pilfered the stimulus with hundreds of millions of dollars going to large corporations with almost no oversight. That's not theory. It's a fact. Why aren't we up in arms about that? Why aren't we reposting stuff about that? Hospitals maybe taking money are the problem? Not Bill No has taken money to bolster the wealth of their shareholders. Another conspiracy tale, like we talked about tonight with our friend Bobby. Fauci is a deep state who profits from patents he owns. Now, he made a little reading reveals that doctors are often required by policy to have their names in the patents of drugs they help develop. The drug in question, according to him, for Fauci, has earned him approximately $45,000 in 6 years. Not the kind of money that's worth killing mankind over, right? Meanwhile, now, look, I don't want to defend Fauci. I don't know. But in the United States, when asked why he didn't restock the shelves he himself complained were empty, answered, I have a lot going on. I don't have to wonder if that's a conspiracy theory. You can watch the video. And he blamed the impeachment hearings for distracting him. You mean the impeachment hearings? No one in your administration, including you, bothered to show up? So what? He's busy? He certainly has time to watch TV and tweet about it constantly. Yet where's the outrage on that from underground watchdogs of freedom? I saw a video this week which claimed that Kobe Bryant was both a victim of and later a perpetrator of mind control, and that he's somehow nefariously linked to COVID-19. You want to talk about mind control? Let's talk about McDonald's and Starbucks and countless other business centers that have figured out that sugar acts like cocaine in the human brain, and therefore armies of overweight, unhealthy customers who, by the way, will develop most of the underlying comorbidities such as diabetes and hypertension that make COVID-19 deadly, scarfing down their products. No one's picking his fine establishments. Protesters around the country believe their rights are being infringed upon by shadow government who are using coronavirus as a tool for control of the mass. Maybe so. But this week, the New York Times reported that the President of the United States put his son-in-law in charge of the procurement of desperately needed medical supplies for FEMA. Mr. Kushner's sole qualification for this job? He's related to Trump. With thousands of American lives on the line, inexperienced volunteers were tasked with fielding inquiries and given lists of VIPs regarding tips as to how and from where these supplies should be acquired. And those VIPs, you may have guessed, Trump associates, who were given first crack at the fulfillment contracts. One of the volunteers who worked in the program said that they're grossly inadequate. Officials who spent years creating plans for just such an occasion were passed over for Kushner allies. Oh, and most of the VIP leads never panned out. This means that time and effort was wasted in the attempt to make sure Trump allies got the first shot into states and local providers in desperate need. Conspiracy theorists, care to comment? Oh, wait, the New York Times is part of the deep state. We don't have to look too deep into this to find obvious conspiracies. Plans that prove we are being lied to, robbed, and generally screwed over. The evidence is right in front of our faces, but the conspiracy buffer, they're not interested. Too obvious, I suppose. No views, likes, or clicks to be had when the story is already out there. Why do the folks who perpetuate the secret Illuminati, Satan-worshipping, baby-eating Democrats, evil Bill Gates microchip deep state theories never seem to catch on to or care about the shitty shit going on right in front of our faces? Carl Sagan said this about such narratives: a deception, sometimes innocently, but collaboratively, sometimes with cynical premeditation. Usually the victim is caught in a powerful emotion. Wonder, fear, greed, grief. But when governments and societies lose the capacity for critical thinking, the results can be catastrophic. That's the end of the quote. However sympathetic we may be to those who have bought the baloney. That's the end of the quote. So this tells me a couple of things about most conspiracy theories. One, they can be a powerful tool with which to mislead. And they really are is an absence of critical thinking. So America is the perfect audience. I'm serious. I hate to insult my own country, but does anyone believe we're up to snuff on the practices that foster critical thinking? I have a list of those practices, but I'm pretty sure Tiger King and Temptation Island aren't on the list. This is my conspiracy theory. The people who are really up to scare shit have a hand in concocting some of these stories, so those with a more reactionary approach to life can be distracted by sleight of hand and misdirection. Number two, these conspiracy theories are rarely about finding the truth. Most of the time, they're about simple, good old-fashioned ego. We argue that people high need for uniqueness should be more likely than others to endorse conspiracy beliefs because conspiracy theories represent the possession of unconventional and politically scarce information. That is from an article published in several scientific journals in 2007. Moreover, conspiracy theories rely on narratives that refer to secret knowledge. People who believe in conspiracy theories are allowed to feel special in a positive sense because they may feel that they are more informed than others about important social and political events. And our findings can also be connected to recent research demonstrating that individual narcissism, grandiose idea of the self, is positively related to belief in conspiracy theories. That's all from this article about conspiracy theories and why people believe them. Once again, published in multiple scientific journals. This is what it comes down to, my friends. I know something no one else does. That's the rush of conspiracy theories. It's not about finding facts. I have my eyes wide open when everyone else is asleep. I'm special. That's the feeling people are looking for. Just like football, religion, and a myriad of other pursuits that we humans love to follow that make us feel like we are part of a winning team, these wild stories need in the messengers that is more emotional than cerebral. They are a salve to a frail psychology that provides a false sense of self-worth rather than serving a noble purpose. Are all conspiracies fake? Of course not. Senator Joe McCarthy was right. America was full of communists. But they were more likely to bore you with a pedantic philosophical rant while hogging the breed Chardonnay at a snooty Hollywood be-in than foment true rebellion against the United States government. That's the scary part. McCarthy ruined people's lives with a apparent misinterpretation of a half-truth. And he didn't have a Facebook page. So what do we do about this? Well, your old pal John's going to have some suggestions. Look, this is dodgy territory. I don't want to tell people what to think or what to believe. But I Occam's razor this stuff. That's a scientific theory that states of two competing theories, the simpler explanation of entity is to be preferred, meaning what it's like is probably what it is. So is Hillary Clinton really selling sex slaves while she flips pizza dough? Or is she just running a phony charity to launder money? Probably the latter. The other thing I truly believe in wholeheartedly is the unquestionable power of reading, finding your own facts, following your own logic. Whatever the cost of libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation. That's a quote from Walter Cronkite. This was the antithesis of the conspiracy theory, a trusted journalist who seldom gave opinions, but took seriously the job of sharing what was important to Americans when the nightly news was still a lost leader, a not-for-profit endeavor based on journalism, not pay-per-clicks. I say this is the differentiator. If you want to seek truth, learn to love to read. It gives you power over lies. Lies are seldom printed by multiple sources. I'm often able to debunk the silliness I behold in minutes just by reading. We need to become a nation of critical thinkers. In order to do that, we must become interested in our own betterment and development. The simplest and most direct way to implement that solution is to get reading again. It's available to everybody and it will enrich your life. The alternative is spooky. Cronkite also said this: we've got a great percentage of our population that, to our shame, or equally unfortunate, will not read. And that portion of our public is growing. People are suckers for the demagogue. That's the end of the quote. And to any of my conspiracy theorist friends out there watching, and I love you, You don't know what a demagogue is? It's the guy who just gave a multi-billion-dollar tax break to the richest folks in our nation while you were worried about building a wall to keep the thieves out. That's our show, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. We love you. Stay safe. Let me know what's going on out there in your world. And we will see you next Friday evening.
Bye, folks. Be safe out there.